station, everyone. Happy new comic book day. Happy Whiplash Wednesday with the PCP Army Bad Batch. That's right, guys. We're at it for another week. It all started over on Manny's Different Perspectives. That's right. Chamorro Cinema changed his name to Manny's Different Perspectives over on YouTube. He's doing a little bit different things on his YouTube channel where he's reviewing comic books throughout the years. So definitely go check that out. Then go check out Nick Comic Culture for his Cadets Toys and Comics sneak peek, where he goes through Cadets Toys and Comics, shows you what they have for new comic book day, what they have for toys and collectibles. And I will get to the rest of what the PCP Army Bad Batch has to offer on this new comic book day. But right now, it's Chatting with the Comic Community, episode 44. And my guest today, I am super excited to have him here, because usually you see him in a group session with a bunch of different people. So having him here, talking to him one-on-one, to get to know him just a little bit more, couldn't ask for a better guest. So without further ado, let me introduce Phil.
Beautiful station there. Sounds wonderful in headphones. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for joining me.
Excellent to be here. Longtime fan, first-time caller.
So for the viewers that don't know a lot about you, tell them a little bit about yourself, Phil.
Well, the first time I probably came into most people's awareness was maybe in the audience of Spine Ticks, but certainly on Spine Ticks. I won a giveaway there and then highlighted my winning on my own channel. And it was there that I highlighted some of my top live streams at the time. So that got me some attention. And it was shortly thereafter that I entered Spine Ticks for the first time. And the rest is history, so they say, or just a blur maybe. Before that, though, I was in this space. I found back in probably I'm not going to guess, 2016, 2015, I was the only person that I knew who liked comics. And I was kind of tired and restless by that. I wanted to vent and share that energy that you get when you're excited about something. And just the weekly trip to the comic shop didn't do it. I was friends with the manager of my LCS, and I asked him if he'd ever thought about doing a podcast. And he said he had, and he'd be happy to sponsor me. So together, I guess, he kind of sponsored me, and I created a podcast. But with the help of my local shop, in their newsletter, they put out kind of a, I don't want to say help wanted, so to speak, for people who were interested in being a part of the show to submit like a little application that we'd made up. And together we kind of went through them and contacted the people that we thought might be a good fit. And luckily they all were. And back in that era, I was the host of a 9 to 12 person roundtable podcast for about 125 episodes. And I just found evidence of that still on YouTube. Anyway, that I kind of kick myself now because there was a panelist who did all our video work, silentflick.com, who was giving me suggestions. Hey, you should go to YouTube, or you should be trying this tool or that tool. And I really kick myself now because if I had, I'd probably be a legend by now. Anyway, long story short, we kind of closed that. Flash forward, COVID hit. Like literally the week before lockdown started happening, I had placed an order for a real high-end gaming computer that I had been dreaming about forever. And with a stimulus check, I added a camera to the mix, and now you see me.
That is awesome. I knew you had some, like, you tried to, like, some interviews for, like, radio and that, but I did not know that you did any podcasts. That's amazing.
Well, I haven't done radio work. I tried back in the day. I accidentally did probably the worst thing you can do during an interview, to be a radio personality. I swore during the interview. I can't believe it.
I remember that story. You told that I
was
think it
like,
was during Christmas, wasn't it?
it might have been. It could have been. I think I told it. I know I told it on air somewhere, but yeah, it was like I just said something and blink like that. I ended a sentence with, and instantly I knew I'd said it. And the interview was probably over, but I completely acted normal and like I hadn't said it. But I never got a call back. My day job involves my voice, though. I'm in training, so I create training videos and other material that require voiceover work.
Oh, that's awesome. I did not know that either.
So that gives me an excuse to use all this cool equipment for fun after hours, I guess.
So let's get right into it. How did you get into comic collecting and reading?
Well, I am lucky. My parents promoted reading to for my sister and I forever. We grew up. They read stories to us. As soon as we were able to, they were buying us our own books, and they just instilled in us a joy of reading forever. And so now my earliest memories of that kind of are the weekly trip to the bookstore, where we always got to pick out a book. It might have been monthly, I don't know, but we always used to go. It was a family trip to like a Barnes and Noble. We didn't have a big chain store at the time, and we would all get to pick out a book. So again, we just grew up loving reading. And the first book I remember was The Phantom Toll Booth by Norton Juster, which is obscure to some, but beloved by some as well.
I'm guessing yourself.
Yes, it really made an impression. It does a lot of wordplay. Jules Pfeiffer does the illustrations, who's not a comic person, but he's known for in certain circles. Anyway, I graduated from there to, the movie At the Earth's Core was released in 74, maybe 76. And my dad wouldn't take me to see it. And I don't blame him. Looking back on it, it looks like a piece of garbage now, but I really wanted to see it. So instead, since he wouldn't take me to the movie, he bought me the book, which happened to be by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Instant love of Edgar Rice Burroughs. I poured through At the Earth's Core, which is actually book 1 in a 7-book series. That instantly took me to Tarzan, which is 24 books, I think. And then that took me to Mars, and he's got a lot of books. 80 books or so later, and a few years later, I'd read every Edgar Rice Burroughs book there was to read and had gone on to other things. When one day, walking through the grocery store, the words Edgar Rice Burroughs popped out to me, and I was like, wow, something new, Edgar Rice Burroughs. I thought I'd exhausted it all. Turned out to be Marvel Comics. John Carter, Warlord of Mars, issue 22 or 23. My first comic book.
You said John Carter?
John Carter, Warlord of Mars.
I've never heard of that.
It ran for 28 issues. I came in at about 22 or 23, and instantly I read it 80 times. It was like new Edgar Rice Burroughs. And in that book, there's an ad for Tarzan, which Marvel was also publishing at the time. And so, oh my gosh, even more Edgar Rice Burroughs. So I'm instantly, the day you can't get online and do searches, right? But they had ads, right? From like Mile High Comics back in the day, where you could get the back issues. And so that started me down back issue trails, but it also got me into the Yellow Pages. I don't think if people know what that is anymore, where I was able to discover that I had 2 local comic shops in town. And after that, I was hooked. So this was when I was about 8th, 9th grade, and couldn't drive. There's no internet. So I would ride my bike 2 miles to the Hilton Inn, which was on the edge of town. I lived kind of out in the country. And there I would catch a bus that would take me like 90 minutes away, clear to the other side of town, where I could go to the comic shop. So I would go to the comic shop, and then I would take the 90-minute trip back, and then another mile or 2 ride on my butt. And that was my comic book life. I didn't realize that comic books came out once a week. I knew they were monthly. I very early subscribed to comic books, like in the mail, and they would come in a little brown wrapper, and there was no such thing as mint condition. Didn't care at the time. And I guess I'll stop by saying, in going through those back issue ads, that was also how I learned what the hot books were, by recent books that were selling for more. And because one company was selling X-Men 94 for $30, and another company was buying X-Men 94 for $50, I hatched out this plan where I would start this continuous cycle of buying X-Men 94s from one to another, and soon I would be a thousandaire and I could open up my own shop. And those were my middle school fantasies.
So that's really cool. So like John Carter, like, it's really cool to hear that you didn't. I've never heard anybody that didn't say like they got into like the norm superheroes and like got into like reading comic books. Like you started your journey into like reading books and following that author over to the comic books.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that comic book?
Well, in a way, I'm kind of glad I can't, because I didn't notice a difference that I was changing, going from one medium to another. I was just drinking up the story. And these days, I'm not sure I could say the same thing. We talk about maybe gateway comics or what we give out to our friends. Hey, try this, get hooked on comics. But, there are certain books I wouldn't give to people because panels were weird or whatever. It's not just the right entryway, but it was for me then. And it was seamless. It was like, I already have an interest in this. It doesn't matter that it's a comic. I wasn't like looking at that yet. And it was only after I'd kind of gotten an issue 2 of John Carter and then Tarzan, and then I kind of got used to what these things called comics are. And I started looking, reading the letters pages and the bullpen bulletin and things like that, that I decided, and actually it was when I walked into probably my local comic shop for the first time, that I had my mind really blown. And because even then he was one of the most popular characters, Spider-Man, kind of, I know what it was. I was drawn to Spider-Man, but it was through an issue of X-Men, which I picked up. It was a cover by X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 123, has an appearance of Arcade on the cover, where all the X-Men are trapped in a giant pinball machine, but it guest stars Spider-Man. So that was my introduction into X-Men, and I started reading Uncanny X-Men and also Spider-Man. And for whatever reason, Peter Parker Spectacular Spider-Man had just come out, so I glammed onto that. And at the same time, started a collection, and this was probably really my, other than the Burroughs, my first experience in getting back issues. I actually started building from issue 1 a collection of Marvel Team Up. So, and with Marvel Team Up, that was really great at the time because it's always Spider-Man, my favorite character, and somebody else. So I was constantly getting introduced to the Marvel stable of characters. And from there, I grew out a love for Iron Man. I remember I was a fan of at the time. That's the only one that instantly comes to mind. But so house ads, there's, that's the only way we could really learn about what was coming was house ads. Or just by picking up and exploring the other books that were on the rack.
Yeah, that would have been a different time because like now we have like, so the internet and that we could see what's coming out. We have different platforms we can check and see, and we get to read like a little description about them. Plus there's like trailers for comic books now.
Yes, I like that. That's kind of neat. I like to see the artist's vision of, I'm assuming they have input into that. So I like to see the creator's vision, I should see, of their own book put to the screen. And we're also living in a day and age where if you have the money, you can pretty much get anything you want. Yeah. And back then we were relying on ads and then just back issue bins at the LCS. And not having a car, I was really trapped in my own town, right? So
did you just have one shop in your town?
I think that really went far. I had 2 shops, but one of them, I live in the Lansing, Michigan area, which is also home to East Lansing, Michigan, home of Michigan State University. And there was a comic shop on campus. And I really think that was important, that it was a college comic shop, because it had a huge indie selection. And it was there that I saw for the first time Grendel, Turtles, things from that era. That I probably would never have seen at the other comic shop, which I would really call more of a back issue supplier than a new comic supplier at the time. It was in someone's house. It was on the ground floor of their house. So, which is now like a barber shop. Anyway, so I really love that I had the college comic shop, because I got to be around college kids. And, I don't know if as a high schooler, if you did, but I always idolized whatever my idea of college kids was. I wanted to be that. And so to see what all the other cool kids were reading, or the college kids were reading, also because they were a college campus, I got to see, this is timely. I forget all this. Is it Stedman, the creator of Mouse, came and spoke there? Dave Sim and Gerhard, creators of Cerebus, came there, signed
nice.
books, and I bought a $5 sketch, which that was a lot of money, of a brick, which was kind of an inside joke. Gerhard, all he did was draw bricks in the background. And then famous science fiction writer Harlan Ellison visited there. I'll let people Google him, but he had written recently an issue of Daredevil. So I brought him my issue of Daredevil, and he was known as someone who he'd bite your face off if you looked at him wrong, kind of thing. He was a nice guy, but he wouldn't put up with any fanboy stuff. So I was kind of nervous as I approached him with my issue of Daredevil in this place surrounded by college kids. And he was like, "Oh, I forgot I wrote that." And I was like, he takes out his ballpoint pen, signed it on the inside, just why I forgot I had it and let it go a long time ago. But I asked him, "How did you like writing Daredevil?" And his comment was, "Hey, he's just a blind Batman." And this guy's won Hugos. So anyway, I just agreed with him and left. So I was a little starstruck.
Now, touch back on Mouse. Do you still have your copy in that? Because that's going up on price now.
I have thought about, I think there's a box set because there was a sequel written too, and there's a box set you can get them both in. No, I haven't had a copy in a long time, and that's been something that's been on I've been putting it on my wish list for a while, and I've just never pulled the trigger on it. So yeah, now my immediate inclination was to buy 50 copies and send them out.
Yeah, because now that they got banned from that one place, they're skyrocketing up in price.
Yeah, it's, even though it's kind of good for it, I still take issue with anybody who tells me what I can't read.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to like your earliest cartoons, because like I'm interested to hear some of the cartoons you grew up with.
Well, I don't have any comic book cartoon memories. When the 90s happened, which is when all the cool X-Men stuff was going on, and right, I was getting jobs and meeting girls, and I don't even think comics were my thing at the time. I've come and gone from comics a couple times. When I grew up, the cartoons I thoroughly enjoyed were Speed Racer, which was on at like 6:30 a.m. as we were getting ready for school. I remember the button in the middle of the steering wheel that would put the little boot down on the ground, and the car would then jump. And they weren't cartoons, but they were live action Saturday morning shows. H.R. Puffin stuff. And Lidsville. I'm not surprised to see you shake your head. Other people in the audience are going to support me, Glenn. Johnny Quest, I loved. And I've even purchased some Johnny Quest comics in the past. I don't own any now, but I'm sure there are going to be more. In the movie theater, I loved the movie Wizards by Ralph Bakshi, who many more might know from his work on Tolkien. Or maybe not. I think he broke away from that group. I remember seeing, and this isn't growing up anymore, although now it is. I remember seeing midnight movies of Heavy Metal, the movie, over and over. that was also where we saw Wizards, which has I would say, a heavy metal soundtrack, maybe. And Liquid Television, where I loved the Max. Again, not growing up, but still far enough ago. I loved the Max and Aeon Flux.
Aeon Flux.
Yes.
I remember they came out with a movie of Aeon Flux.
Yes, they did.
Was that the same, like kind of the same or better?
I'm not sure if you're going to make a film of Aeon Flux, I guess they did pretty good. But Aeon Flux does some really weird things, like real close-up views of one spy passing a cartridge to another spy while French kissing, but one is on one train and the other's on another train, and that's going on. And both trains are like 3 miles in the air. I don't know, weird stuff.
I'm trying to picture that, and I can't.
I know, right? It's just crazy. It's crazy stuff, which is why I loved it at the time. And I guess in the film, here's an example. In the film, one of the main characters has feet for hams.
Okay. I can get behind that.
So shouldn't watch that movie.
Yeah, no feet.
No feet.
Now Johnny Quest, I remember watching that as a kid, like in the 90s, and that was like, it just reruns, or did they come out with a new series in the 90s?
I'm guessing they might have reworked the older ones. They might have. See, I wasn't watching it then, but it's also possible maybe they made new ones and kind of blended them in with older episodes. If I recall, I could be wrong about this, but as I watched, it was like one episode of Johnny Quest was broken into maybe 2, maybe 3 parts, and in between the parts was another cartoon. Which reminds me, another thing I watched in the morning, maybe along with everyone, was Bullwinkle and Rocky and that whole stable of characters.
I love that show. That, like, I did watch a lot of reruns with like a lot of Hanna-Barbera characters. I love those characters growing up.
That's Flintstones. That's Jetsons. Who else?
There's Yogi Bear.
Yes.
Yogi Bear. There's Droopy Dog. I love that. And it wasn't the whole Wacky Races.
Oh, yes. There was a whole toy line out for Wacky Races, I think. Maybe.
Oh man, I love that show. And like as a kid, like you never realize that it's all staged. It's a cartoon. You think cartoons are real sometimes when you're a kid, and you're just like, you don't know. Like, no, it's not staged. They didn't pick who's gonna win. Somebody's gonna win, and it's not staged at all.
You're on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Yeah,
it's live.
Exactly. It's just like live. No, Dastardly and Mutt can't win. Like, no way.
I wish I could do his laugh. I won't try. Is it Cemently? Yeah. Yes.
Oh man, I love that growing up. Now, talking about Rocky and Bullwinkle and that, I know that they made a movie of that. They also made a movie of the other title that you mentioned. I forget. You said it was the very first one you said. Speed Racer.
Oh, see, now I haven't seen the movies of either one of those.
Oh, no.
You're talking live action?
Yeah, they made a Rocky and Bullwinkle. I think it was in the early 2000s. They made a Rocky and Bullwinkle TV or movie, and it was live action. And then
is DeVito in it? I see him as Boris. I can't remember. Anyway, I
forget exactly who's in it, but it was like around the same time that Inspector Gadget came out as well.
Okay, I remember that. They played Inspector Gadget where I was at after schools. Well, I should say in the afternoons. I wasn't in school at the time, but I remember being in the afternoons. He had telescoping limbs, right? Among other things.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then like a helicopter.
Yes.
Yeah. Others would come out.
Like trench coat?
Yeah.
Yep.
And Speed Racer, it had, I forget who that actor was who played the actual character, but I'm pretty sure John Goodman was in the Speed Racer live action.
Did you like it? Have you seen it? Is it worth a watch?
It was interesting in that it's been a while since I watched it, but I guess it didn't have that whole rewatchability, so it might
Okay.
have not have been that great at the time. But I was
Nice.
also like 20 years old, so
I had
movies
no
came
idea
in.
that was done. I'll have to check that. See, that's well, okay. I'll check that out. That's going to be an interesting cast list. Seeing as though it came from, seeing as though it's anime, right? It's original anime.
Yeah, it was like the earliest anime that came to America.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think so.
Speaking of which, I've not seen the anime. For some reason, I had some ungodly, unhealthy obsession with Ultraman. But Ultraman's original anime too, right? Do you know anything about Ultraman?
Not a whole lot. I know Hammer Time Holeshoe knows a lot about that character, and not sure who else, but I was never really big into Ultraman.
Okay. And I'm not either, but for some reason I had to have every cover of the 2 miniseries Marvel just put out. Sorry.
Yeah, FOMO got the best of you, man.
It wasn't FOMO because I was pre-ordering that stuff. So I don't know why. What? Another cover? I don't even like this guy. So I feel obliged now to watch the show. Someone help me.
So were you big into, like, I know you said Speed Racer, but was there any other anime that you were into growing up?
Akira, again, a midnight film that I really liked. And that's another thing I almost pull the trigger on a lot is the hardcover box set that Amazon has for an ungodly amount of money, but it looks so beautiful. Because I've never read it. I actually bought the Epic issues, but never read them. Epic Comics, Akira. That's all that immediately comes to mind. Although I am reminded of the TV show Fringe, which had
Oh my God, I can't believe you just mentioned that, because I was just talking to.
episode.
They made an animated episode of Fringe.
One episode was animated. I think it was in the last season.
Yes.
I also thought it was cool that Leonard Nimoy was in that series. Not a lot of people remember that.
Oh, and it's funny you mentioned that, because I was just talking to people about it today, talking about Fringe and how great it was. And I'll send you some pictures later. Walter,
okay. Yeah,
and the Queen on the $20 Canadian bill kind of look alike. So I'll send you pictures and see, like look it up, perfect. Guys. Look it up if you're watching. They look alike. Oh man, cool. Like it's a good way to get into the TV shows you love growing up, because like you mentioned Fringe. Like I loved Fringe, so I'm interested to hear what kind of TV shows you loved throughout the years.
Well, I have a media server at home, so all I have to do is pull up a list of the things that are on my list, or of the things that are on my server. My friends and I would get together for watch parties of Twin Peaks, but that's not something I would ever want to watch again. Although I'm glad I saw it. I don't regret seeing it. I just don't need to see it again. It's like a Eraserhead in a way. I don't need to see that twice. But that was some mighty fine pie. You ever see that?
No, Twin Peaks? I have not.
Okay. I'll just look at my list. Brave New. Well, you want old shows or does it matter?
I want to hear some of your favorites. It doesn't matter, new, old, just whatever your preference is.
Well, then here's something I just fell in love with, and I just dropped the first season of Archive 81. Have you heard of that?
Oh, I love that show. Oh my God, I recommend that to everyone.
I'm not done with it yet. I think I'm only 1 or 2 episodes left, but wowee.
Yeah.
So okay. I'll give you more. I really, really enjoyed Foundation on Apple TV. Isaac Asimov's Foundation. It's like, I've never read the books, but now that I've seen the series and would highly recommend it. It's really smart TV in my opinion. As is another series I'll think of in a minute. It's like the scope of Dune Foundation could be, but they really did a good job of reeling it in. And maybe like Dune, they don't spoon feed you anything. They assume you know what they're talking about, and they just keep the story going. So anyway, I really enjoyed that. Band of Brothers has nothing to do with the genres that we're usually into, but Band of Brothers, I will is it's an all-time favorite. It's difficult to watch, but you need to watch it. Channel Zero was an interesting.
You're just giving me more shows that I'm going to definitely be checking out.
Okay, Channel Zero was an interesting Twilight Zone type of show. And if I'm not mistaken, like its first, well, I don't want to give it away. Never mind. What a creative monster! Its first episode. Every episode, I think, is a different story. I just watched Station 11 with Mackenzie Davis, I think is her name, who was in one of the Terminator movies recently. Anyway, check that out.
Who did she play? Did she play that?
She played the female Terminator.
Yeah, I remember her from, I think
she was in the Mars movie with Matt Damon. She's the scientist that discovers he's really still alive up there. But it's kind of a bit part. I'm not highlighting her better. Oh, Halt and Catch Fire. She was a star in, if you've seen that show, which is kind of a fictitious parallel telling of the PC industry back in the days of Windows and Apple. I just discovered that the Freak Brothers, do you know who they are?
No.
I just discovered the Freak Brothers have a cartoon. They were a comic strip that ran in High Times magazine. We talked about Fringe.
Where does your TV mostly lie? Like, what kind of genres do you enjoy the most for TV?
I instantly gravitate to TV and film. I instantly gravitate to science fiction or horror. I think when it comes to horror, gotta say that word carefully. I'm pretty immune to the gore. I don't really care about the gore. If you have to have gore to be scary, you could be doing better. Which is not to say I don't appreciate gore. I love the Dawn of the Dead series. Love what Romero did. I'm reading his son's books. Rise, I think, is one of them. And he had some serialized story in the actual heavy metal itself.
I have not read Rise, but I know Fable sent Sister Joe that book, and she loves it. And her tastes kind of are similar to mine, so I think I'd enjoy it as well. So I'm probably going to give it a try eventually.
Okay. We talked about Fringe. I love X-Files. I love conspiracy stuff if done well. X-Files I got tired of because for every one question they answered, two more popped up, and I got tired of that. I want some satisfaction. I don't want that's enough. It's teasing. Fringe was more. I thought Fringe was a lot like X-Files, two agents, but it was a lot more satisfying. Or maybe I'm thinking of Warehouse 13.
Oh, that was another good one.
That had a comic book too.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah, it only ran for it was only a miniseries, 4 to 6, but there's a comic book out there.
I'm definitely going to be searching for that now. I love that show, and I loved how they crossed over with Eureka. Did you watch that show?
Eureka. Remind me.
It was about
That's a town, right?
Yeah, they're like a cop comes there, and he ends up moving. He was searching for his daughter, and that's how he got trapped. Came to this town, and then became the cop to a town full of brilliant people.
Oh, that's right, brilliant people. Yes, that's right. I didn't see the whole show. I saw it only went for 2 or 3 seasons, right? I saw the first season. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I saw that. I don't remember much about it, but that was fun. That was unique.
It was a blast. And they sometimes you'd see characters cross over into Warehouse 13, and then characters from Warehouse 13 cross over talk about it. And then they also had
excellent.
I don't know if they had a character crossover, but they talked about the characters from Alphas.
Alphas I don't know of.
Alphas, I think it lasted 2 seasons, and it stopped on a cliffhanger.
Okay.
So that's why.
See, now I'm writing that down. Right next to Live Action Speed Racer.
Another great one, because I love my sci-fi TV shows, and Haven was based on The Colorado Kid by Stephen King, and about this town with people that had troubles, they called them and stuff. So like they have like abilities, but like it's not abilities that you'd want.
Haven is not it doesn't broadcast Stephen King, but you're saying that was a Stephen King series, right? Based?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was based on the Colorado Kid.
Did that only recently end?
No, it ended a while ago. It lasted, I think, 5 seasons, and it was like filmed right near me too. It was filmed in Nova Scotia, right where Neighbor of the North is at.
So there's a story in, I think it's Batman versus Superman, where they go to Lex Luthor's house for dinner party. Ring a bell? And Wonder Woman shows up. I might be getting the movie wrong, but it's the DC film where they all go to Lex Luthor's house out of costume for dinner. Well, Lex Luthor's house is really an art museum down the street from me.
Oh, no way.
And they shot there for a couple nights, overnight. And I had a friend and his wife who were extras and are actually in the movie for like all of a second and a half, he says. And their story, their brush with fame is that I want to say Matt Damon, not Matt Damon, Batman.
Ben Affleck.
Yeah, Ben Affleck bumped into his wife. So anyway, but that, yeah, so you know, that was some fun filming that happened in my area.
That's awesome. You could probably be right. It's been a while since I've seen Batman versus Superman, so
I think that was it.
Yeah. That probably would have been it. I love how like it's so easy. You could probably become a walk-on. Like it wouldn't be hard to like ask, like because like they'd probably be looking for people.
He had an inroad because he runs a film company, silentflick.com. Did all the videos for my own show. And somehow he got on some lists or in the door first or something on that. So that was great. I was so happy for him because that's what he went to school for. That's what he really gets into. Anyway, I don't remember where I was going with that. I just remember them saying that they like set up like green screens all around the building so that they could put behind, you know, you wouldn't know it's in the heart of East Lansing, Michigan, Lex Luthor's house. You know, they superimpose stuff behind it. Anyway.
Now, were you around? Did you see them setting that stuff up?
I could have gone down there if I wanted, but traffic was a little odd. And oh, wait a minute. Nope. Yep. I lived here at the time. I was thinking that was so long ago. I lived in Florida for a while. No, I did not go downtown during that time. Or to East Lansing during the time. I'm familiar with that area, and it's congested enough without a film crew being there. There were, though, at the time, rumors of like Holly Hunter flying into our airport. So I think before then there was no mention of her as even being in the movie, and that was there's a spoiler. Holly Hunter is going to be in the movie, so she's like some military person, if I'm not mistaken, if I recall, or
that's
the White House.
Yeah, I've never seen like actual sets set up in that. And like if you could see them setting them up and see the green screens come down and that would be kind of interesting to just like even just view that like from afar.
I think so too. And I've seen, for example, I saw behind the scenes photos of Sandman as it was being produced or being filmed. There's like a park scene. And so, you know, you get the wide angle shot of the film crew and everyone's standing around, but there's where the action is happening. And it's such a small part of the footprint that production is taking up.
So anyway. Do they have like does a lot of things get filmed where you're at?
Well, that didn't happen here. I just saw that photo, a set photo of wherever they were doing it. It might've been Vancouver, which is where they seem to do a lot of things. But I just remember marveling. I was like, that's a Sandman set photo, because you're looking around and it's just full of plainclothes people holding up equipment and things. And then, there's someone who's in a costume. So, and then you can kind of see, there's where everyone has their attention centered. And I don't know, just that kind of brought it home. Oh, there's Sandman. There's his sister Death. There's the soccer player that she's come to get. I don't know if you've read Sandman, but it's a classic scene.
I have not read Sandman. I do plan, I want to read it before the series does come out, because it's coming out this year, I'm pretty sure.
Well, it wrapped production, so it's been in post production for a good 4 or 5 months now. I don't know if they don't have a debut date yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if we got one anytime. And from what I hear, it's based on the first story arc, so which makes sense. And so if you just bought the first trade, you're probably covered.
Yeah, that's probably what I'll do. I'll probably search for that and read that because I'm super excited for that series. It looked really good for what I've seen.
I think I'm reminded. I think Sandman in its day kind of did what Saga did when Saga first debuted. It got attention from outside the comic book world. People came into comic book shops to get Saga. People came into comic book shops to get Sandman back in the day. Partly, I think, because Tori Amos was a big Neil Gaiman fan and like dropped a Gaiman lyric in one of her songs. But I just remember articles in the fan press about how Sandman back in the day was a comic shop owner's dream come true, just like Saga was when it first started hitting.
It's interesting. And yeah, you could be right that it's filmed in Vancouver because a lot of things is filmed in Canada because it's cheaper for production and that. And that's one thing I want to do is like try to get out, like, because I'm a huge fan of the CW shows, but I don't think they'll CW DC content will be on the CW much longer. It'll probably be switching over to HBO Max, but still they're probably going to be filming in Vancouver anyway. And I want to get up there and hopefully
it's the tax breaks. I don't know what else. There's got to be something else that make it. I don't know. Is it just tax breaks and the pretty scenery?
I think it's just the tax breaks
Okay.
on it. It makes it a little bit cheaper, but you think like having to like I'm not sure if the cast would have to fly themselves out or would the production fly them out?
Well, I guess it depends. Like, for example, I can't think of his name all of a sudden, but he played Lex Luthor in Smallville. He's got a YouTube show.
Michael Rosenbaum.
Yes, Inside of You.
Yeah.
And so he's had several cast members on his show. And over the course of their conversations, it sounds like in their case, if you're on a regular show, they just kind of fly you out and you live there for 8 months out of the year or whatever. Maybe even more. I don't know. Because I hear them talking about the place as if they were citizens of Vancouver for their like much of their lives while filming. So I think unless they have bit parts, I think they're camped there for the duration of their stay.
Yeah, I remember I watched it's been a while since I watched Inside of You by Michael Rosenbaum. But I remember him telling a story about how he got a houseboat at one point when he was on the set of Smallville.
Okay.
And that was interesting.
Is it? Well, I know he's told stories about how what's the right phrase? He can stress out. And so I would think that might have been, was that something he did so that he could kind of relax and de-stress?
I don't know. He said he only did it for like one season and then it was the hotel for the rest, but he said he enjoyed it a lot. But
see, now that reminds me, I used to live in Key West just for a year. And there was a weird comic shop experience, but it was weird as you come into Key West, you see people who live on these houseboats, for lack of a better term, but they don't go anywhere. They're just like permanently tied to these giant posts in the water and they just live there. So I can envision that kind of being, even though you're kind of close to it all, you're kind of away from it all too.
Yeah. So you're speaking of Smallville, like were you a fan of Smallville watching that?
I was a fan for a while. I always wanted Clark and Chloe to get together, the reporter who later went to prison.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah, that's a story for another show.
Yeah.
So I was, although actually, you know what, I became kind of a non-creepy fan of Kristen Cruick. And so when I IMDb'd her, I found her, the Canadian show she was on before which was all about a high school drama. I don't remember what that show's called. It ran for like 5 or 7 seasons. And Grace Park, who later went on to be on Battlestar Galactica, was on that show too. I'm glad I don't remember that show. I'll get teased for it. But I don't know. I just fell into the high school drama angst for 5 seasons of Kristen Cruick.
I'm curious now to find out that show. Like the only high school Canadian show that I can think of is Degrassi, but that was.
Well, I was going to say it's probably Degrassi was what I was going to liken it to. Not that I've seen it, but I have to imagine it was similar to. Well, since this is the age of the interwebs, I'll do a Kristen Cruick IMDb search.
Kristen Cruick. She was actually part of that whole thing that Chloe, the actress, got into as well, but she got out
yes.
way ahead of time.
Yes.
So
she was it must be KRU. Some fan I am. Oh, I can't find it. I can't find Kristen Cruick on Instagram. I'm spelling it wrong, and I'm not going to take up your time.
Oh, that's all right. But it's funny that you mentioned Battlestar Galactica, because that's a series I'm actually going to be watching tonight.
Really, for the first time?
For the first time in that. So.
I am so glad to hear that. I don't own many box sets of entire shows, but that is one of them. I assume you're talking about the remake, not the original from the 80s.
Yeah, the remake, and then you'll love to hear what I have to say later once we are wrapping up the show. You'll love another thing I'll say later.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm super excited to jump into that. I know I'm not sure if he had anything to do with the show or like writing wise, but Mark Bernardin, usually see him with Kevin Smith on Fat Man Beyond every Tuesdays or Wednesday nights, and that he's written a lot of comic books, but he's had ties to Battlestar Galactica.
Dynamite had a bunch of Battlestar comics with the characters from that iteration of the show. I wonder, would it have been related to those at all? Or
possibly. I never really thought too much into it because, of course, I never watched Battlestar Galactica at that time, so I didn't think about it too much. But now that I'm going to jump into the series and I love that writer, I'm curious to see if he actually had anything to do with the show.
Do you know anything about the original?
No, I do not.
That's good. I have friends. Well, we all love the new show. But many of my friends were not happy with the way it ended. I was fine with the way it ended, but they did not like the way it ended. And I think it was because it's not the same as the original show. That's why I ask. And then I'll end with, it's also coming back. A new flavor of Battlestar is coming back.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I don't know if it's in production yet, but I've seen enough articles about what's going into the making of it, that or the writing of it, I should say, creating of it, that I have high hopes that it too. The Expanse, that's what I was thinking of earlier. I thought at the time Battlestar Galactica, the one you're about to watch, was some of the smartest TV on TV. And then The Expanse kind of was the replacement for that, I thought.
Okay. I know some people are telling me I should watch Caprica after I'm done watching Battlestar Galactica.
Yes. It takes place before Battlestar, but it puts a lot of, I think it's the history of kind of how the Cylons became to be Cylons. It's the history of the Cylons, really, and how they were created by man, is Caprica.
Okay.
So it's a prequel of sorts.
Super excited to jump into that. I've not watched The Expanse either, so that is definitely getting into my list. Have you watched the TV show Continuum?
I certainly have heard the title. Remind me, it's not currently on, is it?
No, it's not currently on it. A lot of these titles are sci-fi. They're all Canadian and mostly Canadian actors as well. Okay. But it's all about this guy who there's these people that come back in time and try to kill this. It's kind of a little similar to Terminator things, but it's different considering these guys that are coming back, they're humans, and they're trying to stop this one guy from creating certain things and technologies but they're the bad guys that are coming back. He's the good
Oh.
guy, but then you later on find out that maybe he's not so good and going on through the series. But it lasted quite a while, and it's definitely a show you need to like keep staying on.
That's good. And I'm gonna have to go rewatch this just to get this list of shows we've been talking about. And because it's reminded me of another show called Beforeigners. Have you heard of that?
No, I have not.
Beforeigners, all of a sudden, everyone throughout time who has gone missing, like from UFOs or whatever, come back. So like all of a sudden I don't know where this takes place, but San Francisco Bay, all of a sudden, Vikings show up swimming and, and needing of rescue. And when they pick them up, they speak Viking and no one can understand them. But this is happening all around the planet as people from the past are reappearing. It's called Beforeigners. And it's about how they reintegrate into modern day.
That sounds interesting.
And then one of my favorite, speaking of time travel, one of my favorite movies, and I also enjoyed the series, but it was hard to keep up with. So I fell off at the end of the first series, was 12 Monkeys. Familiar with that?
I started watching that just because it has the guy who I'll talk about another series after this, but he played Pyro in the X-Men series.
Oh.
Like
okay.
that's the same guy. I'm pretty sure it's him. And then he also played another character in the show Nikita, not La Femme, not
La Femme.
La Femme, Nikita,
not the assassin.
But the Nikita show that later on came on, and it had the guy from Walk to Remember with Mandy Moore, like the lead guy with him, and then it had another characters come back. That was a really good show too.
Okay.
He played the computer geek.
Okay.
So, but I'm pretty sure 12 Monkeys. It's a guy. It's the same guy. I'm pretty sure. I watched a little bit of it, but I didn't go past anything further.
That is I would say check out the movie. It's a lot compact, I guess. Or it's a great time travel film delivered in 2.5 hours with Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis. Can't beat that.
No, you can't beat that. Bruce Willis does good and kind of sci-fi. Like it's funny that he went away from that because like one of like the best sci-fi movies he came out with was like Fifth Element.
Yes, that's
like
I've seen that a million times. Every time like technology gets better and they move from CD to Blu-ray to 4K, I always have to get a new version of Fifth Element.
Yeah, it's well worth it. But man, this has been an amazing conversation. A lot has been probably on our list to like watch for TV. We talked about comics a little bit at the start, and that I just want to say thank you so much. The link to Phil's channel and his Instagram is down below, as well as Spinetics, because you'll catch him over there every Saturday night shouting out the amazing people showing up in the chat. But Whiplash Wednesday is continuing. Nick Comic Culture is up next with his second video of the day because he's overcompensating for something. So he'll be showing you what he's picked up and why he picked them up. Then Brandon, that's Comics Kings, and Stefan, that's Missing Link, chopping up about Crisis on Infinite Rants. What are they ranting about this week? Tune in and find out. Then ending the night in fashion is Big Hearn Collectibles, Fable, and Missing Link. So you get 2 Missing Links, 2 Nicks this week. And they'll be talking about Battlestar Galactica.
Excellent.
And that's a big reason why I'm watching it. So you definitely want to tune in and watch that. I think they'll be covering 2 episodes until they're finished of the series.
2
but
episodes
it could,
per episode. Okay. Boy, that's going to be a long series. That's good.
It could go up more. They've been talking about maybe they'll go up further and that because it'll take a while to get through all of that.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm there. Okay.
Yeah, cool. You got a new show. They got somebody new watching now.
Yeah.
But the end of the night. But my final question to you, Phil, is...
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Okay.
If there's a comic... what series of comic books that nobody's reading right now that you urge people to read or think that they should at least give it a try?
Can I say one that it's not out that I'm looking forward to?
Yeah.
Actually, it's kind of out. It's based on this. If you like the X-Men, but you don't want to get sucked into all the stuff that's going to make you go buy 80 more X-Men comics just to pay attention to the story, this is the team of Milligan and Allred. I'm pointing in the wrong place, but they did X-Force back in the day. They're coming soon to a comic rack near you with Excellent #1.
Excellent #1. When's that come out? Because could be out by the time this airs.
Actually, it just may be. Issue. I haven't seen the new previews yet. I have it at my feet, but issue 2 was solicited in the last one. So 1 month later, yeah, watch for Excellent. We'll see. Did my prediction ring true?
That is awesome. I'm so glad that I'm so glad that we get to have this conversation, Phil.
Me too. It's about time, right?
Yeah.
Let's not having a million folks between us and like this giant panel of people.
Guys, if you like what you're seeing, make sure to hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. And if you're new, welcome. Hopefully you enjoyed this show. And hit that bell for notifications. Also, make sure to go follow Phil on Instagram. Go subscribe to his channel because he's doing you're doing some card unpackings, aren't you?
Yes. Yet another hobby to make me pull my wallet out. Yes. Yes. We're breaking open cards.
And then you can see him every week, every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern over on Spinetix. The link is down below to that channel as well as the links to all of the Bad Batch, the Backlogbros, who are they, who knows, and friends of the channel. So, oh man, so great. Everybody, station, and as always, my friends, stay nerdy.